The rain came down in sheets over Ouagadougou. The city's heartbeat slowed under the weight of the storm, and in the presidential compound, silence reigned. Soldiers in soaked fatigue stood motionless along the perimeter walls, their rifles clutched tighter than usual, as if the very air whispered betrayal. Inside, Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood alone before the tall windows, his silhouette sharp against the fractured light of distant lightning. His uniform, pressed and immaculate, barely concealed the exhaustion in his shoulders. The reports in his hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what they revealed. Across the room, footsteps approached. Heavy, deliberate. Ibrahim didn't turn. He knew the stride too well. Enter, Colonel Diallo. The man who had once been his most trusted friend, his comrade through endless nights of political uncertainty and foreign interference, stepped inside. Colonel Mamadou Diallo, sharp-featured and cool-eyed, saluted stiffly. His posture was perfect. His loyalty, Ibrahim now knew, was not. You summoned me, mon capitaine. Ibrahim finally turned, his eyes dark and unreadable. I did. For weeks, Ibrahim had ignored the warnings. Rumors. Whispers from ministers, soldiers, villagers. Diallo had been meeting with foreign agents. Plotting. Selling not just state secrets, but selling out the country's very sovereignty. And worse, all while pretending to stand at his president's side. Ibrahim had confronted many enemies before, warlords, mercenaries, foreign-backed militias, but nothing stung like this. Tell me, Mamadou, Ibrahim said quietly, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade, how long have you worn two faces? Diallo's expression barely flickered. The colonel was always calm under fire. That had once been his greatest asset. Now it was a curse. You've been listening to frightened old men, Captain. I stand where I've always stood. At your side. Ibrahim held out a slim manila folder. This says otherwise. Diallo didn't reach for it. The damning photographs inside showed clandestine meetings, sealed briefcases exchanged under the cover of darkness, and encrypted communication logs pulled by Ibrahim's intelligence unit. The betrayal was complete. A long, cold silence stretched between them. Outside, the storm rolled on. Ibrahim's voice softened. You were my brother, Mamadou. We crawled through mud together. We bled for the flag together. I would have trusted you with my life. For that very reason, I protected you, Diallo answered smoothly. The world moves against us, Ibrahim. I offered them assurances. Nothing more. Ibrahim stared at him, the muscles in his jaw tightening. You offered them Burkina Faso. The words hung heavy. A lesser man would have exploded in rage. Ibrahim did not. His control was ironclad. He walked slowly to the desk. From a locked drawer, he pulled out a small, elegantly wrapped box. Polished wood, gold hinges. It did not belong in a room thick with betrayal, yet it held a message far greater than any words. Ibrahim set the box gently between them. This is for you. Diallo blinked, the first crack in his mask. What game is this? No game, Ibrahim replied. Take it. With cautious fingers, Diallo unlatched the box. Inside, resting on velvet, was a simple brass compass. Worn. Scratched. The very one Diallo had given to Ibrahim the day they had first marched as young soldiers into the unknown. Its needle still pointed true north. Diallo froze. I am returning what never belonged to me, Ibrahim said. His voice was calm, almost tender. This compass guided me when I had no answers. It saved me in the desert. It reminded me where home was. Now I no longer need it. You do. The colonel's hand trembled as he closed the lid. For the first time, the unshakable Mamadou Diallo looked truly lost. You're not arresting me. Ibrahim stepped close, locking eyes. You will walk out of here alive. But know this, your betrayal will be known. Your name will be erased from the history of this nation. You will carry the weight of your choice for the rest of your days. Lightning flashed again. Ibrahim's words dropped like a hammer. Leave my sight before I change my mind. Diallo stood motionless for a heartbeat too long. Then, with slow, almost broken steps, he turned and walked out into the rain. Ibrahim remained still, staring after the man who had once been his brother. The room grew colder. Somewhere deep within, he knew this was only the beginning. The enemies outside would now sense blood inside the walls. He whispered to himself. The storm has only started. The door clicked shut. The next morning, the sun blazed over Ouagadougou as if mocking the darkness that had unfolded just hours before. The presidential compound bustled with forced normalcy. Soldiers drilled in the courtyard. Ministers shuffled papers with urgent purpose. But inside Ibrahim Traoré's war room, the atmosphere was suffocating. General Traoré, an old loyalist with deep scars both visible and hidden, stood at attention as Ibrahim read the latest intelligence report. Across the heavy wooden table, Major Awa Sankara, one of Ibrahim's sharpest intelligence officers, tapped her fingers anxiously against the folders she had delivered. Ibrahim closed the report and exhaled sharply. So it's confirmed? Awa nodded grimly. Diallo didn't leave quietly. Last night he crossed the border into Mali. We intercepted transmissions. He's meeting with the consortium. The room fell silent. The consortium, a shadowy alliance of foreign corporate interests, mercenary brokers, and corrupt exiles, had been the cancer gnawing at Burkina Faso's independence for years. Now, with Diallo as their prize defector, the cancer had teeth. General Traoré broke the silence. They'll move fast. With Diallo's knowledge of our defenses, supply chains, and command structures, we are exposed. Ibrahim stood, his tall frame casting a long shadow against the tactical map pinned to the wall. Colored pins marked hotspots, loyal provinces, and areas under foreign pressure. His fingers traced the borderlines. They will not just come for the land, Ibrahim murmured. They will come for our dignity. Traoré nodded solemnly. They will come for you. Ibrahim's jaw tightened. Then let them. Awa stepped forward, her voice low but urgent. Sir, we must prepare for internal betrayal too. Diallo had sympathizers. We've already uncovered signs of sleeper cells inside Ouagadougou itself. We believe a plot to assassinate you is underway. Ibrahim did not flinch. Do we know when? Awa hesitated. No. Only that the order has been given. It could be days, or hours. Ibrahim paced slowly, the weight of leadership pressing harder with every step. The walls seemed to close in. The betrayal had opened a floodgate, and there would be no turning back. Finally, he stopped. His voice hardened. I want double security at all critical sites. No communications without verification protocols. Pull in all special forces for urban counterinsurgency. And get me Captain Ouedraogo. The name sent a ripple through the room. Ouedraogo, known in hushed tones as the Jackal, was a brutal, brilliant operator who had been exiled for his extreme methods. Calling him back was a move of desperation. Traoré spoke cautiously. He's unpredictable. So is the enemy, Ibrahim answered coldly. Moments later, the door opened. Captain Suleiman Ouedraogo strode in, his black tactical uniform sharp against his dark skin, eyes glinting with the cold calculation of a man who had walked through hell and learned to thrive in it. You called me, Mon President? His voice was soft, almost mocking. Ibrahim nodded, unwavering. We have traitors among us. I need you to hunt them. Quietly. No mistakes. No mercy. The Jackal smiled faintly. Finally, something worthy of my talents. As the officers filed out, leaving only Ibrahim and Awa behind, the weight of the moment returned. Awa whispered, Sir, why give Diallo the compass? Why let him live? Ibrahim looked out the window at the vast city sprawling into the horizon. Because that compass was once our bond. It was a reminder that even in darkness, men can choose their path back to the light. I gave him a chance. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. But now the world will see what happens when a man chooses the darkness instead. Outside, in the shimmering heat rising from the ground, hidden figures moved in alleyways, preparing for the order that would change history. The assassination clock had started ticking. The streets of Ouagadougou buzzed under a thin veil of uneasy calm. Markets bustled, radios crackled with folk songs and political commentary, but beneath the rhythm of daily life, shadows moved. Hidden hands exchanged coded notes. Burners' phones clicked silently alive. Inside the presidential residence, Ibrahim stood in the courtyard under the fading golden light. He stared at the old baobab tree in the center, its massive, gnarled roots sprawling like the veins of the land itself. It had stood through empires, colonization, independence, and now this. General Cabaret approached silently, his boots crunching against the gravel. "We found another sleeper cell. They were planning to detonate an IED along your motorcade route tomorrow." Ibrahim didn't move. "How many?" "5 captured. 2 dead." "Keep digging. They will try again." Suddenly, the distant crack of gunfire split the air. Awa's voice blared through Ibrahim's earpiece. "They're here. Palace perimeter breached. Multiple hostiles." Ibrahim didn't hesitate. His hands snapped to his sidearm as he sprinted toward the command center. Alarms wailed. Loyalist guards rushed to choke off the attack. Explosions rippled through the compound walls. As he rounded the corner into the darkened corridor, Ibrahim froze. There, standing calmly beneath a flickering overhead light, was Colonel Mamadou Diallo. Not a photograph. Not a report. Flesh and blood. Drenched from the rain, Diallo had returned. His uniform was gone, replaced with the matte black combat gear of the consortium's mercenaries. His cold eyes stared at Ibrahim without remorse. Behind him, 2 masked gunmen flanked the doorway. Ibrahim raised his weapon, but Diallo didn't move. He almost looked amused. "So this is where it ends, mon frère," Diallo said softly. Ibrahim's voice was iron. "You were my brother. I was your equal. You just never saw it." Diallo stepped forward slowly. "You clung to your ideals. I chose to survive. They offered me power. You offered me martyrdom. You left me no choice." Gunfire echoed closer now. Ibrahim's security forces were closing in. The tension in the hallway crackled. Diallo's voice dropped to a sinister whisper. "I'm not here for the presidency anymore. I'm here to end you." "No, Ibrahim, no resistance." The masked gunmen raised their rifles. Ibrahim stared at Diallo, his eyes full of a cold, unforgiving calm. Then his lips curled faintly. "You forgot something." In that heartbeat, Suleiman Ouedraogo, the jackal, exploded from the shadows behind the attackers like a phantom. 2 silenced shots. The masked men crumpled. Diallo spun, firing wildly, but the jackal was already gone into the darkness. Ibrahim surged forward, slamming Diallo against the wall, gun pressed under his chin. The corridor went dead silent except for Diallo's ragged breathing. Ibrahim's voice was a growl. "I gave you the compass. I gave you the chance to walk away." Diallo sneered, defiant even now. "I chose my path." Ibrahim stared deep into the eyes of the man he once trusted more than anyone. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered the gun. "No. You chose your grave." The jackal appeared behind Diallo, twisting his arms back, forcing him to his knees. Footsteps thundered down the hall as Awa and her security team arrived, weapons drawn. "Stand down," Ibrahim ordered calmly. Diallo laughed bitterly as he was cuffed and dragged to his feet. "You think this is over? The consortium will burn this country to the ground." Ibrahim stepped close, his voice low and dangerous. "Let them come." From the distance, the deep rumble of helicopters signaled the arrival of more enemies. Ibrahim looked out into the darkening sky. The night was far from over. His next words were meant for both his team and whatever eyes in the shadows still watched. Tonight, we remind the world why this land has never been conquered. The night over Ouagadougou roared with the angry blades of low-flying helicopters. The consortium had unleashed its full fury. Across the city, gunfire erupted in bursts. Armored vehicles stormed government installations. Paid mercenaries and rogue elements of the National Army struck under the cover of chaos. Inside the fortified command bunker beneath the presidential compound, Ibrahim stood surrounded by his most trusted officers. A giant digital map glowed red with alerts. Loyalist forces were outnumbered 3-1. Entire sectors of the capital were burning. General Traoré slammed his fist onto the table. They've taken the Ministry of Energy and the broadcast station. They're pushing toward the airport. If they seize the runways, foreign troops will land by morning. Awa stared grimly at the screen. Sir, we can hold the palace. We can survive. But the country will fall. Ibrahim's voice cut through the panic like steel. No. All eyes turned to him. His expression was cold and controlled, but beneath it, something burned. Resolve. The kind only a man who had already prepared to die for his land could possess. We do not hide behind walls, Ibrahim continued. We fight for them. He stepped to the center of the room and pointed at the blinking red zones. The people will not follow men cowering in bunkers. They will follow those who lead from the front. A stunned silence followed. Then Captain Ouagadougou, the jackal, let out a low chuckle. Reckless. Insane. Suicidal. He looked at Ibrahim with something bordering on admiration. I'm in. The others nodded, one by one. There was no discussion. No hesitation. Ibrahim snapped orders with machine precision. Awa, coordinate resistance cells in the north and east. Traoré, secure the armory and rally the National Guard. Ouagadougou, come with me. Minutes later, under the cover of smoke and darkness, Ibrahim donned his battle gear. Camouflage fatigues. Body armor. His nation's flag stitched over his heart. He holstered his sidearm and slung an old Kalashnikov over his back, the same rifle he had carried as a young rebel. The streets outside were an inferno of conflict. Flames leapt from government buildings. Civilians screamed and fled as bullets tore through the night. Ibrahim's convoy roared through the chaos, dodging RPG fire and roadside bombs. They stopped at the heart of the city, Place de la Révolution. The towering statue of Burkina Faso's independence hero stood defiant against the skyline, bathed in firelight. Consortium mercenaries were everywhere, setting up heavy weapons and preparing to raise their flag over the square. Ibrahim jumped from the armored vehicle. No speeches, he ordered. No negotiations. We take it back. Now. The gunfight erupted like a thunderclap. Ibrahim led from the front, weaving between burning cars, returning fire with deadly precision. The jackal was a silent ghost at his side, eliminating targets before they even knew they were hunted. As they advanced, loyalists and ordinary citizens rallied behind them. Farmers, students, taxi drivers, armed with whatever they could find, flooded into the square to push back the invaders. The tide began to turn. Ibrahim grabbed a fallen flag, stained but unbroken, and raised it high. The sight sent a shockwave through the crowd. With a final coordinated push, they overran the enemy positions. Consortium mercenaries fled into the shadows. The square was theirs. Breathing hard, Ibrahim stood beneath the statue, the flag fluttering above him. Blood and sweat soaked his uniform. His chest heaved, but his eyes remained sharp. The people gathered around, silent, wide-eyed, disbelieving. They had just witnessed something impossible. Awa's voice crackled over the radio. Sir, the entire city is watching. They're broadcasting you live from drones. You've just lit a fire. Ibrahim nodded grimly. Then let them see. The fight isn't over. The night was still young. The battle for Burkina Faso had only just begun. Dawn broke slowly over Ouagadougou. Smoke still curled into the sky like the last defiant breath of the defeated. The gunfire had fallen silent. Streets that were battlegrounds hours before now lay eerily still, strewn with bullet casings and shattered glass. Ibrahim stood atop the presidential palace steps, flanked by his exhausted but unbroken inner circle, Traoré, Awa, Ouedraogo. The national flag rippled behind them as golden sunlight pierced the haze. All around the compound, people gathered. Soldiers. Farmers. Teachers. Children. They had come not because they were ordered, but because they needed to see with their own eyes that their leader still stood. Awa leaned close, her voice soft with disbelief. They're gone. The consortium forces withdrew under cover of night. No official surrender, but they knew they couldn't hold the capital. Traoré smiled grimly. They'll lick their wounds and wait for another day. But today belongs to us. Ouedraogo stood at ease, bloodied but grinning. And Diallo? Ibrahim's face darkened slightly. The former colonel had been captured trying to flee in the chaos. Now, handcuffed and broken, he knelt inside the palace dungeon awaiting judgment. The betrayal had cost him everything. Power. Country. Legacy. Even the foreign masters he trusted had abandoned him when the winds shifted. Ibrahim turned to face the crowd. He walked forward alone, stepping into the morning light. The people erupted into deafening cheers. Ibrahim raised his hands, silencing them gently. He did not speak from a balcony or behind bulletproof glass. He stood at ground level, among his people. His voice, deep and calm, carried across the hushed square. They came to divide us. The crowd murmured. They came with money, with weapons, with promises. They corrupted some of us. They tried to steal our future. Ibrahim paused, scanning the faces, old and young, weary and hopeful. But what they did not understand, what they will never understand, is that Burkina Faso is not for sale. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. A roar erupted from the crowd. Ibrahim lifted a small object from his pocket. The battered brass compass. He held it high for all to see. This was given to me by a brother who later betrayed me. I returned it to him, hoping he would find his way back. He chose otherwise. The people listened intently. Not even the children moved. I keep it now not as a memory of him, but as a reminder to all of us, we are the compass. We decide the direction of this nation. Not outsiders. Not traitors. Us. Together. Tears welled in some eyes. Even the hardened soldiers stood a little straighter. Ibrahim's voice rose with conviction. We have survived the night. But the dawn is not peace. The dawn is work. Rebuilding. Defending. Growing. The struggle continues, but we will meet it together. The crowd surged in applause, chants of Traoré. Traoré. Look, Capitaine, thundering through the streets. Behind him, Awa whispered, Sir, you've won. You've united them. Ibrahim shook his head slightly. His gaze remained fixed on the horizon, where the sun touched the rooftops of the battered but free capital. No, he said quietly. We have won. And tomorrow, we fight again. The camera drones captured the image that would circle the globe, Ibrahim standing tall, unbowed, surrounded by his people, flag behind him, smoke rising, the compass clutched tightly in his hand. It was not just a photograph. It was the rebirth of a nation. As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows that whispered of both the cost and the triumph, Ibrahim walked down the steps, not away from the people, but into them. Into the crowd. Into the future they would build together. Burkina Faso had been tested. And because of a leader who gave his betrayer a gift instead of a bullet, it had endured.